Welcome back, everybody, to the Roads We've Traveled podcast. My name is AJ Pelletier, and thank you again for tuning in and subscribing and all that great stuff. I appreciate it more than you know. I've seen a big hike in downloads, so I do appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If I sound a little bit different, I'm using a brand new mic that I got, a Shure MV7 that I picked up. I'm really digging it so far. I've upgraded my setup a little bit. Unfortunately, it's not going to be in today's episode or the next one because they were pre-recorded before I upgraded my equipment a little bit. But future episodes this season, you'll probably notice a little bit of a difference. So hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, really stepping up my podcasting game and my streaming game. So I would appreciate if you guys definitely kept subscribing and reviewing and commenting and telling a friend, telling a family member. It would mean a lot to me. But my just to update you guys. Again, this episode is pre-recorded, and I'll get into my guest in just a little bit. But it's been a little rough for me lately. I've been I feel like I've been burning the candle at both ends, and I needed some help. I've been experiencing a lot of major anxiety lately. My depression has been through the roof, and I feel like I've been isolating too much. Granted, a lot of us are feeling that way due to the pandemic, which is totally understandable. But again, as I've said on the show before, plenty of times, I work nights, mainly. That's my main source of income. I also work a part-time job as well. So I do about 50 hours a week between both jobs. I also live alone. And the only person that sees me every day, or thing I should say, is my cat. So it's nice to come home and have her by my side. But it is tough sometimes to isolate yourself from people during these times and everything like that. And it's been creeping up on me a lot. I've been dealing with some personal things. My father was recently in the hospital. He's okay, thankfully. You're not going to hear about any of this stuff in today's episode. Again, like I said, this was pre-recorded weeks ago, so I'm just giving everybody an update about what's going on. And that kind of triggered a lot of panic attacks in me. I've been experiencing panic attacks. Didn't really know what they were until I've did some research and stuff. And I saw my new doctor. And we're gonna she talked about therapy first, of course, and I was all over it because I don't want to take medication if I don't have to, but I am open to it. So I started seeing a new therapist, and so far it's going well. She's going to work on some ways to help me deal with my anxiety and my depression. Kind of just went over a whole lot of stuff that I've been very open about on my show here that I've been going through, and a few other things. And I'm looking forward to working with her and getting through this. So if you guys are going through a lot of the same stuff I am, please reach out, get help. You're not alone in this. Everybody's going through something, and it's rough right now. It really is. And definitely you're not a burden to anybody, as much as I feel like sometimes I am a burden on others. I'm not. I do matter to people, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. So definitely reach out, get help, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to your doctor. Find a therapist, find some sort of counselor to help you get through it. You can talk to a therapist online now. Granted, the vaccine's been out for a little while. I recently got vaccinated myself, so finally got that out of the way, and I feel good. But now I can actually see my therapist and mask up, of course, and everything like that. But definitely reach out and get help if you need it. The other thing I've been doing too is finally it's been getting warmer out and everything. I've been going for hikes again, and I look forward to it every week, especially after a long week, is just to get outside, get back to nature, and just hike those trails because it just feels so damn good. I actually just got back from a hike, and like an hour and a half long hike, and it felt really good. So, but let's get into today's episode. Today is my longtime friend, Sara Hall. Sarah and I go way back. You'll hear about it in today's episode. We actually went to elementary school together, and we didn't even know that, but apparently we were in the same class and stuff. But she ended up marrying one of my best friends. They have a family together and everything. And we talk a lot about, dealing with mental illness and depression and stuff like that, because she goes through a lot of the same stuff that I do. And how she gets through it, how, therapy has helped her and everything. She opens up about a lot of that stuff. She also talks a lot about her podcast, Raising Legacies, which is kind of about, being a parent and everything like that. And, what kind of legacy are you going to be leaving behind for your children when you're gone, kind of thing. And it's a really great podcast. I definitely suggest any parent out there to check it out and subscribe to it. Again, it's called Raising Legacies Podcast. Check it out. And we just, shoot the shit. I haven't seen her in a while. I miss her. And it was just great catching up with her. But let's get right into it. Here is episode 32. I had to think about that for a second. Episode 32 of the Roads We've Traveled podcast with Mrs. Sara Hall. Welcome to the Roads We've Traveled podcast, episode 32. My name is AJ Pelletier. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing and sharing and telling your friends. I appreciate it. I got a great guest today, longtime friend, someone I've grown up with and respect a lot. She is a Spanish teacher and the host of Raising Legacies podcast, Miss Sara Hall. How are you, Sarah?
Living the dream. How are you?
Hanging in there. It is what it is, right? We're towards the end of this pandemic, hopefully. So let's just keep moving forward, right?
Keep trucking along. That's right.
How have you been during the pandemic?
It's really been like a roller coaster. There are some moments where I'm flying and feel like everything is going great. And then I hit a bump that I don't think you could ever be prepared for, a bump like a pandemic. And so lots of things have thrown me down. And so it's been a journey kind of getting myself back up and making sure that my kids stay up, because trying to manage their downs while I'm down is just not possible. So it's been a lot, very up and down.
I hear you. It's same here. I mean, just recently, I think I've been realizing I think I'm having panic attacks, and they just come on like so randomly at times now. Like I have an appointment in a couple weeks to go see a doctor to like talk. Well, plus my primary care doctor retired, so I had to find a new doctor. So I figured I figured it was time to find a new doctor and try to figure out what's going on. But yeah, like it's between the pandemic and like stress and everything, I've had personal stuff going on. My dad was in the hospital recently. He's home now. He's fine. Knock on wood, everything's good. But yeah, I had anxiety and everything, and just stress and depression, and just like, I think what just set me off this week was just a friend checking in, asking how my dad was doing. And immediately after I was done talking to him, I couldn't breathe. Like I was at work, I had to run outside, like my chest was killing me. I couldn't breathe. And then after I finally got control of it, I like grabbed my inhaler and like, I was fine after that. But I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't the first time it's happened either. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So I don't know if
I think
you have the same things, but
I can totally relate. I think that there are times when it just becomes too much and we're holding on to so much that once we finally release, then it's like, oh my God, now you have to catch your breath because you're so used to bearing it for so long, and it gets heavy. It gets really heavy. And I kind of compare it to like when you go for a run, and I haven't been a runner for about a year now. So especially now, if I go for a run and then when I like come to a stop, if it's a sudden stop, I have to take the time to catch my breath again.
Right.
And, if you gradually slow yourself down, it's easier to manage your heart rate. But I think it's very similar, because when you're carrying all of that heaviness that comes along with everyday stresses of your life, plus dealing with the illness of your father, like that's a lot of stuff that you're carrying. And then as soon as you start to let it go, it's like, whoa, like shock within your body because you were carrying it and now you're not. And it's like, what do I do?
Right.
It kind of definitely a lot.
It kind of felt like fight or flight for me at that moment. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was dying for a minute, and I'm just like, I know this isn't real. Like, why is my body reacting like this? You know?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, that was just that's just me. But I mean, I think we're having some. I think you're freezing here.
Oh,
yeah.
You were frozen too.
Oh, I think I'm good. But there we go.
Yeah, on my side, I'm moving, but you're not. There we go.
Must be someone's internet connection. I don't know, but we'll
Yeah.
get through it. But yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely been rough at times during this pandemic. That's why I made this podcast to like help and like still stay in touch with friends and get to know them on a more personal level and stuff like that. But how is the family doing during all this?
So at first, it was a lot of creative ways to keep the boys entertained. I have 2 boys. They're 7 now and 4, almost 5. And so the boys needed a lot to keep them busy because they go to a school where they're constantly moving and engaged in these tasks that they choose. And so switching to an online learning mode for the remainder of last school year was really rough for them because they don't use screens in their classrooms.
Right.
So then to suddenly have to shift entirely to a screen was tough. So I was on Pinterest a lot and YouTube looking at science experiments and art projects and things that we could do to engage their minds. And we spent a lot of time outside. We went for a lot of walks and nature hikes and things like that. And that helped them kind of continue to feel a sense of normalcy. And eventually through the summer, we just started to slowly expand our COVID bubble, we call it. So we started to see a few more people, and then we went back to school full time right at the start of the school year, which is very different from lots of my friends and my family members. When their kids went back to school, it started remote, and then they went to like a hybrid model, and now they're slowly getting back into schools now that the vaccine has been released. So they're experiencing all kinds of transition where at least we've had that consistency with physically going to school since the start of the year. And so it's been a lot easier to kind of maintain that sense of normalcy within this pandemic.
Well, that's good though. I mean, like you gotta stay motivated and you gotta keep going, like we were saying before, you know, and keeping your sons occupied during all that with some fun activities and stuff to do to keep their minds going. Like that's really cool. I discovered I really love hiking last year. Like I went out hiking like all the time, and I actually just like we were talking before we recorded today. I bought a new like gimbal. It's like a stabilizer for my phone, and I wanted to test it out and everything. So I was like, let me go on a quick hike before I record today, because like I just needed it for my mental health too, but I also want to play with this new toy I got. So yeah, so I went out and tried it out and everything, and it's just like I definitely should have worn pants and not shorts today. But yeah, it was definitely cold out today.
You went out in shorts?
I had a hoodie.
I went this morning. I actually got up. I planned to go on a walk with Crystal, our mutual friend. And so I was like, went outside to switch the cars around so that I was taking my car. And I texted her and was like, make sure you bring gloves. It is really cold outside. And so then, and that was like really early this morning. So I figured it would get a little warmer. So I just did like leggings and a long sleeve and put a hoodie on over it. Oh my goodness. It was so cold.
I think
we still did it. We walked around and we just did a few laps around the park, but it was like, I could not believe that I went outside and it was that cold. I was more layers than you. So.
Yeah. The highest that got to at noon, I think, was like 42.
It was actually freezing when I got out. When I walked out of my house, it was 32 degrees.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any really good hiking clothes, so I think that's going to have to be an investment of mine this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, by the time I, really got going, like I was warmed up and stuff. So I was like, okay, like I'm fine. But then like, once I got back on the main road to get back to my car, I was like, okay, it's getting cold. I should probably like move a little faster now. But yeah, no, it was great though. I just hope I don't get sick now. But anyway, but yeah, So let's talk about growing up a little bit. You and I have known each other since we were kids, and I have to confess though, like I know you and I were in class together at elementary school. I don't remember that. Except
I
for
don't remember it either.
yeah,
It's only the one
that one
picture that we
picture.
have.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that it was you in there until it started floating around social media. And it was like, hey, that's me. And we're like, what? You're in that class?
Yeah. That's so crazy. And it's just like, hearing your brothers and stuff talking about like, oh yeah, AJ, we've known you for years and everything. I'm like, I don't remember. Like the only time like
No.
I've known any of you guys was hanging out with the crew of guys that we all started hanging out with when I was like 16.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's talk about growing up. Like, what was it like growing up? Of course, I know all your brothers. I know your mom. I know your dad and your stepdad and everything like that. But I mean, like, what was it like growing up?
So we moved around a lot, and I was the only girl of three boys. So I always grew up. Boys have been like my whole life. That's been my comfort. My best friends were all guys. I now have two boys of my own. Everyone in my family only makes boys. So it's always been boys. And I think that I grew up a little bit stronger than I may have had I had more women in my life, because I kind of had to be and couldn't rely on the sensitivity of a male because I didn't have any sensitive males in my life.
Right.
And I think there were some challenges with having the boys, but it also was comforting to know that I had protection if I felt like I needed it. And then sometimes I felt like I needed protection from them because they're rough. I mean, there were actual times when
they were nuts growing up, like not like,
listen, let's be so honest right now. There were times when my brothers would be using cookie sheets from my mom's kitchen to play wrestling. Like it was a lot.
If we're really gonna talk about it too, your brother Kyle, aka Super, we all call him, back in our backyard wrestling days, would jump off garage roofs onto us. Like
yes,
he was
as a
nuts.
hobby. Like
yes.
That was fun for him.
Jeff Hardy was his
audacity. Let's talk about this for a second. So I don't know if he listens to your show, so I might get a text after this. But there was a time recently when he was in my house and my oldest was doing like the Spider-Man up the wall thing, and then he just kind of like hung from the doorway. And my brother Kyle had the audacity to say to me, he needs to get down. He's gonna fall. I was like, do you even know who you are right now? What? I was like, he's literally you in a tiny person's butt. Like that, no. So, but yeah, anyway, he's changed quite a bit and is obviously a little more cautious now, but that was certainly nerve-wracking anytime we would play, because it's like anything that was taller than he was climbing it to jump. So it was always an adventure. We can say that. Definitely adventurous. I didn't spend a ton of time with my parents. My parents divorced when I was 10 years old. And so in the beginning, my dad wasn't around a ton. My mom had to work two jobs. She had 4 kids. So it was a lot of being supervised by my oldest brother, who, was more a warm body and a pair of eyes, because he was, just a teenager himself. And so what capacity does he have to be able to care for other people?
Right.
So it was a lot of us kind of fending for ourselves. She would always make sure that there was some kind of dinner ready. And then most of the time I would just kind of escape to friends' houses, back when like I could just walk across the street and not have to like text anyone to tell them where I was going. Right. So I spent a lot of time with friends of mine, and I think that did 2 things for me. It helped me to interact with more females, and it also helped me to recognize that sometimes I needed the support of other people and I needed to be around other people. Unfortunately, sometimes now I feel like I need that more than I actually do, because I've lost a lot of sense of self-worth and self-confidence. And so I rely heavily on outside validation, which is not fun. And I don't know if necessarily going across the street to play with my friends did that to me as a child, but I definitely suffer from a significant insecurity. And then I have to try to model confidence for my students and my children. So it's like constantly putting on this mask. But I think the only things that really made me feel like confident as a child were cheerleading and then just spending time with my friends. I didn't feel like I was really fighting to fit in until that first move after we came to Illinois. And so we spent a lot of time back and forth between Illinois and Connecticut. And the first move was nice because I felt like, great, I have some friends now. And then we moved. And so from there, it was really difficult. We went into a place where our neighborhood was where some of the better schools were in the district, but there were a lot of people who I felt like I couldn't fit in with. We, two parent households, not a ton of divorced parents. And there were a lot of people who were financially better off than my family was. And so they had all the latest, in fashion and in like the school supplies and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember like kind of feeling like I didn't quite measure up almost all the time. And I then sort of suppressed it because I didn't recognize what was happening. And now looking back, it's like, holy cow, I was dealing with a whole lot and never really was able to process and unpack that until I got older and became a little bit more self-aware.
Yeah, I hear you. I didn't move around as much as you did, but I definitely had trouble myself with like confidence and like finding myself and opening up a lot when I was growing up and everything. That's why I felt more comfortable with a crew of friends that I have with like your husband and everybody else that we all hang out with, because I could be myself and like we could all break each other's stones and everything like that, but at the end of the day we were all still friends and we all had each other's backs. But like I fit in more with them than I did with anybody else, like in school or in my neighborhood and stuff like that. Like I was always, like you said, putting on a mask to try to like fit in and hide the fact that I'm insecure, I'm depressed and everything like that. I still do a little bit to this day, but yeah, I hear you. It's fucking rough. I mean, like when did you first move out to Illinois? Like I know
I was
back and
7.
forth. You're 7, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you come back to Connecticut?
The first time my sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
And then we were only here about 4 months. My brothers stayed. We went back. My younger brother and my mom and I went back to Illinois. And then I finished college there, did my master's there, and then I came back by choice.
Right. I remember. Yeah. And I like I think, was that around the time like you started coming into the picture a little bit more with like everybody else? Like I was like, who's Sarah? Like, everything. Like she was like super attached to like Jay at the hip and everything. And like, I was like, who is it? Like, oh, this is Super Sister. I'm like, where the hell have you been this whole time? Like,
yeah. And I think the first time when y'all started like hanging out and stuff was after I had like kind of come and gone.
Right.
So they all hung out with me that for those few months that I was living in Connecticut. And then I moved away, and then it's when you kind of came in. So like we missed paths the first time, and then the second time we came back, and it was like I had kind of been hanging out. Like anytime I was on breaks, I would come out this way because my mom had moved out here when I was in college, like the middle of my college span, and so I would come out to visit her. So I think our first time actually meeting was like right around Easter time, and Jay and I actually were at your house with John. And
I don't remember any of this.
See, that's what I remember. And so I was still in college then, but it was like that one interaction. And then I don't think we like hung out again until I came back.
My mind is so shot from, booze and just rough lifestyle, but age, yeah, that too. It really makes me worry about the next 30 years from now, like how bad my mind is gonna go.
It's so funny though. So this is a thing that I often think that I just have such a strong memory that I remember things that I don't think other people will remember.
Right.
So I think that sometimes kind of plays into my insecurity, because it's like, even on social media, when I go to like friend request somebody that I went to high school with or middle school with, it's like, well, do they even know who I am? And pretty recently, like I have a friend that I went to college with this group of guys that we were all in the same chemistry class. So we would like study for tests and stuff. And one of them was in my friend's list, and I was messaging people about a fundraiser I was doing, and he responded back to me with the nickname that he used in college. It was like Super Sofa, right? Because we had that last name that everybody makes it Super something. And so he was like, oh yeah, sorry, Super Sofa, whatever. And I was like, okay, so these people do remember me. But it's really funny because a lot of times I'll say to myself, like, that person doesn't know who I am, or like, and I can remember like specific instances where our paths cross. And then sometimes people will bring things up to me like, do you remember the time when such and such thing happened? And I'm like, yeah. And I thought I was the only one who remembered that. So
Right.
it's crazy how our minds will remember things that sometimes are so insignificant. And then other times we'll forget things that are like, oh my gosh, that's such a big piece of my life. And how did I forget that?
Right. I just remember like all the embarrassing times or like times that I've screwed up more than anything. And I'm like, can I just remember something good? Like for a
Yeah.
change, you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
why
because
don't
then we replay in our heads
right,
like what would I do now that I like know more stuff, and
right.
now that I can like look back on that, like if I could go back to that moment, how would I do it differently? And
Mm-hmm.
you can't. So
Yeah,
yep.
past is a past for a reason, you know. That
Correct.
definitely does take a toll on me with my mental health a little bit. Like, you know, I'll be up at night and just thinking about stuff, and I'm like, can I just go to bed? That's when I like take like a CBD gummy or I take some drops, and I'm just like, just knock me right out, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're talking a little bit about mental health, and you were talking about dealing with you know, some insecurities and confidence and stuff like that. Like, do you suffer from depression and stuff too, anxiety, stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. So I was not actually diagnosed with depression until shortly after my second child was born. The first, we explored the possibility. My doctors and I talked a little bit about how I could be dealing with some postpartum depression.
I was just
And
gonna
then
ask, was it that or yeah,
as we dug deeper, we realized that these are things that kind of have been historically part of my life and either ignored or passed along as like PMS or hormones or changes in my life that were happening, environmental factors. And then finally, it was like, no, you suffer from a depressive disorder and we need to do something about it. And so I started taking medication, and my doctor said that if I were to have a third child, she would immediately start me on the medication again because she knows that with each pregnancy, postpartum depression can get worse, especially if you're already suffering from an underlying disorder. And so that was a thing that I had no idea about. The anxiety didn't really come to the surface until a couple of years ago. And I feel like everybody sort of has some sort of anxiety somewhere, like anxious moments and things that can
right,
trigger that. But to actually be treated for it, it has to be like a regular piece of what you're experiencing. And so that piece wasn't diagnosed until last year. And now I've changed medication so that it's something that kind of deals with both pieces. And the other thing that has long been prescribed and often ignored by me is self-care. And self-care, especially when you're a parent, is crucial. But as a human being, it's so necessary. And people, I think we kind of grew up in this society that told us that we needed to help other people, and you put yourself
yeah,
last, and people were celebrated for putting everybody else first. And now it's like, no, we like, and the airplane flight attendants will tell you, like, put your mask on first before you can help a
right,
child or somebody next to you. And that's for a reason, because you cannot help another person if you're not helping yourself. And
right,
that was a really long journey for me to kind of come to myself, because I felt like, no, I'm a parent. I need to put my kids first. Well,
mm-hmm.
but then who's putting me first? I need to do that. That's my
Right,
responsibility. That's my job. And so I've been slowly incorporating more self care strategies and just kind of recognizing again that I have worth and I won't if I don't take care of myself. If I'm neglecting
right.
myself, I won't have anything to offer to the people around me.
Right, exactly. Like I got some advice from a guest from the season, actually, Brittany Brown. By the time this episode airs, her episode will already be out. But she suffered with addiction problems and stuff like that for years. She's been sober for 5 years now, and she had this thing where she learned in AA where it was like playing out the tape. You know, like you pop the tape at like, okay, I want a drink or something. I pop in the tape. This is what's going to happen if I do that. So, and I just love that analogy so much that I was like, okay, like I'm working 50 plus hours a week between two jobs right now. You know, I have my podcast. I have a whole bunch of other stuff that I do on the side. You know, if I play out that whole tape, like where does that leave me at the end of the week? How am I feeling at the end of the week? Well, I feel drained. I feel tired. um Mentally, I'm just out the door already because I've already put so much energy into everything else. Like, what am I doing for myself if I keep playing that tape over and over again? And that's when I was just like, I need to get outside. I need to do something. And that's, you know, like I
Hmm.
said earlier, like I went for a hike today. I needed that hike, not only because I wanted to play with my new toy, but I needed fresh air. I needed to
Yep.
clear my head, you know, and just do something for myself. And you got to do that. And I just love that analogy so much. And you could just apply it to like anything in your life, like whether it's you're losing weight, you want to lose weight or something, you know, like, oh, I'm really hankering ice cream, but if I have ice cream right now, like I'm gonna feel like crap, I'm gonna feel bloated, this, that, and the other, I'm not gonna want to work out later, this, that, and the other. Like, you know, I was just like, I'm gonna use that analogy now for like everything I do now. So
Absolutely. And it's definitely a cycle too. When you are dealing with mental illness, if you're taking care of your body and you're taking care of your mind and you're taking care of yourself emotionally, you experience many, many fewer symptoms than you would if you were diving into the bag of chips or the alcohol or the drugs or sleeping and not getting yourself up and out of
right,
bed and those kinds of things that sometimes we find comfort in them, but the comfort's only temporary. And then there's the self-loathing phase where you're like, I can't believe I just ate that whole bag of chips and then I slept all day and I still have these piles of laundry. And so I think that it definitely works in our favor to be doing the things that we need to be doing to take care of our bodies and our minds,
right,
because
right.
then we can keep that healthy cycle going. And I work with a naturopathic doctor for nutrition, and she said to me one time, like, when you go to eat something or when you make the choice of what you're going to indulge in, you need to think, is this going to make me feel better or worse? And remember that you're working toward longevity and a healthy lifestyle and against disease. And I think that that was something that really resonated with me, having diabetic relatives in my family and having
Right.
people who've suffered with obesity and this really unhealthy lifestyle, congestive heart failure and things. And so that's it's within my power to prevent that for myself, and nobody's going to do it for me.
Right.
So kind of taking that ownership has been another piece of this very complicated puzzle.
Mm. I'm getting better at that myself too. Like I have a long family history of heart disease and uh like depression on both sides of my family too, like just like bad. And you know, I'm doing the best that I can with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what I can do. Like as you can see, I bought an elliptical behind me.
Yeah.
I have a total gym in the other room that's been getting me through the winter. I canceled my gym membership because fuck COVID. Like I'm not going to work
Yeah.
out at a gym surrounded by people breathing
Yep.
and you know whatever. But like after the vaccine, that's a different story. But anyway, but yeah, no, I've been doing the best I can to, you know, work out and try to stay healthy and make healthier choices and stuff. And like I still indulge every now and then with like
You have to.
whatever, you know what I mean? Cause like I can't
Yeah.
be super health nut 7 days a week. Like it's just
No.
it drives me nuts. Like I look forward to a cheat day, or if I indulge a little bit too much on one day, then I'm like, okay, I'll make it up tomorrow, you know, and just
Hmm.
go back to my routine or whatever. But you know,
Right.
you have to. And exercise does, like you said, like does help with my mental health. And like, you know, I feel a lot better after I work out or I go for a hike or something. I just feel more stimulated and I feel happy.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Even if weight loss isn't a goal that you have, just feeling better about life, like
right.
getting out and going for a walk, can make the world of a difference. Like scrolling through social media does not do anything for our
No.
brains. Like, watching a movie can be comforting, yes, but like get up and do some steps while you're doing like something to keep your brain moving. But that fresh air, especially now that the weather is supposed to be getting nicer. I guess today was an anomaly, but knowing that we have this good weather and the fresh air, and if you can get out and walk with a friend, so you have some of that social interaction, but definitely finding something that makes your body feel more energized is so necessary right now.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Um, so you know, you said you're taking medications and stuff like that. Are you still on the medications, or are you on a different one
Yes.
right now, or are you just okay? All right.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah. Go
started
ahead.
with an antidepressant, and now I'm on Lexapro to
Okay.
kind of manage anxiety and depression simultaneously.
How's that working for you?
better than I was before. I was on, we were taking the same medication. Now I can't remember what it was called. uh, it's gone. Whatever it
I
was.
can't help you. I've never taken anything, but
I took it for a long time, and then I was like, this is helping, but it's like a Band-Aid, and it feels like a Band-Aid, and I needed something more. And so we explored Lexapro. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it's called. But anyway.
They have all complicated names and all this other crap. Like, I used to work in pharmacy years ago. I couldn't pronounce half of the drugs that we had there.
But yeah, so I switched to, now it's Lexapro, and I also take a multivitamin, and that helps. And so it's a combination of things, but the medicine doesn't work alone, right? Like you can't, it's kind of like if you have a cold, like if you have a cold and you're taking a cold medicine, but you're still like not washing your hands, not blowing your nose, not
sleeping,
not sleeping, not hydrating, the medicine's not going to do anything for you.
Right.
And so it really, again, it's like a roller coaster, like the whole pandemic has felt for me. If I'm treating my body right and I'm getting some kind of physical activity and I'm drinking water and I'm eating well, then yes, the medicine does work.
Right.
If I am eating chocolate cakes, 4 times a day and diving into a bottle of wine every time I sit down and then not getting back up for 24 hours, like, then no, it of course does not work.
I just got super nauseous when you said all that. That's so much.
Ugh. It's so much. So yeah, but I do definitely think that it helps. It does not work alone. I also see a therapist twice a week, not twice a week. I'm sorry. Every 2 weeks I see a therapist. And I also stopped kind of holding things in myself, whether I let things out in a journal or I have conversations with people that I know will support me and listen with a judgment-free ear. And starting my podcast was another thing that helped me to connect with people and feel that sense of support and self-worth. And like I was doing something to help another person. And that really helped me to feel better too. I definitely still have down days. I cannot say that I'm on the mend with mental health. I don't think it's a thing that's ever going to go away.
No, it's just something that you have to manage. And I think the best quote I ever heard was like, mental illness is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's something that's never going to go away, but you need to manage it,
And that it needs to be treated just like any other illness. That if you were, just like I was talking about the cold, if you have a cold, you're going to take medicine, you're going to take the steps to recuperate.
Right.
If you have a mental health disorder, it needs to be treated. If you don't believe in medication, you at least need to be in therapy. And I think that you don't even need to have a mental illness to be in therapy. I think everybody needs to be in therapy. My children are in therapy. And I think that it's just so necessary for us to have a non-biased person in our lives that we can process through change and through tough emotions and things that we were otherwise not really trained to manage. You mentioned you have come from a long history of depression in your family. Was it treated within your family? Did you notice like a generational progression towards treatment?
It's just weird because like my mother like was doing the right things, like getting she talked to a therapist for years, and then after her divorce with my father, trying to get us to go to a therapist and like talk and everything. I wasn't about it back then, but like I fully am now. But like my father refused to like go to a therapist and like talk about his problems and stuff, and like he buries everything, especially after his childhood, which I've been open about on the show plenty of times. But he had a really rough childhood. And he just bottles everything in, it doesn't explode into like violence or anything like that, but like it'll boil over sometimes where like he gets very quiet, or like he'll punch something, and like not anybody, but like he'll punch a wall or he'll punch a steering wheel or something like that. Stuff like that. But I see what it's done to his health, especially now in recent years, and just how bad it is for him. And I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to wind up like that. And, my mother's still good and everything. Like, she still has her issues. She's taken, medication in the past. I don't know if she still does, but, she still talks about therapy and like going to see therapists and stuff. And like I've been to a therapist in the last couple of years. I actually might be going back again once I talk to my doctor about whatever the hell's going on with me right now, because I feel like I kind of need that recharge. I kind of need to open up a little bit more, because like I'm falling back into old patterns. I'm not drinking every day like I was, but like I don't really drink a lot anyway, but it's just like I feel like other patterns are falling back into place, where it's some days I'm good, other days I'm not taking care of myself, and like they'll just kind of snowball until I'm like, no, get off your ass and do something again, kind of thing. Like I just need a routine again, and I feel like maybe there's just other stuff going on that I need to talk about. So
Yeah.
but anyway,
I'll always advocate for therapy.
yeah,
All
same
the
here.
time.
Same here. Same here. Absolutely. I think it did wonders for me. It saved my life a couple of years ago, because I thought I was going to kill myself a couple of years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it was very scary when I realized that. I just from like if if I took everything that I was doing, like I was writing out a will, I had emergency contacts, I gave a key to my apartment to friends of mine, and just coming from an outside perspective, looking at all that, and my friends asking me if I'm okay, and I was lying to them, I would have been like, yeah, this looks like I'm gonna kill myself. Like it's just looks like I'm setting myself up for disaster here. And I'm like, okay, get on the phone, find a therapist right now. Like you need to get your shit out. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong and you need to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
and I
I
did.
think the other thing that's important for people to recognize too is that it's okay to shop around for a therapist. Like if
Right.
you go to somebody and you don't feel like you're vibing, don't just say, well, I tried therapy and it didn't work. Maybe that therapist did not work for you, but
Right.
therapy itself is a process, and
Mm-hmm.
you might not feel better that day. You might, because you've relieved yourself of some of that
Mm-hmm.
pressure, but find somebody who's compatible with you. I'm lucky that I'm so grateful for my therapist. She'll call me on my shit when I say something, and she's like, well, but is that really how you feel? And I'm like, I don't know. Or like when I'm very, very passive aggressive. And
Mm-hmm.
so recently I was like so angry that my house was kind of a disaster. And like, I just kind of took control, and I was like, I'm going to clean. And I cleaned everything. And she was like, you showed them, didn't you? And I was
And it
like,
was a total disaster again, like an hour later. Like
and not only that, like what I really needed was help doing it. And
right.
rather than just saying, hey, everyone, I need some help, I just took it upon myself to do it for them. And,
Mm,
so it's really helpful to have somebody who understands where you're coming from, who has those connections with you and works with you to help you kind of face some of
right.
those hard realities about yourself, and
Right.
recognize when it's time for you to do some of the work too. Because yeah, we can benefit from having more support from the people around us, but also there are things that we can be
Right.
doing to enhance our own lifestyles.
I felt bad for my therapist, because it was like every week it was something new for me, and she was like, you can't catch a break at all, can you? And I'm like, I'm like, I know, right? Like, I don't know what to do. I mean, like, I loved my therapist. She's no longer with the place anymore that I was going to. She had some family stuff and she had to leave. But that was like a year after, like, seeing her and everything like that. And I felt like I was okay by the time I left. But now I'm probably gonna have to find a new therapist. But yeah, it was just like every week I went in there, it was just like, okay, this is going on. And then, she would listen, she would question a lot of things about like how I would handle it, maybe give advice about how to handle it in the future or whatever. And then like I would come back, she would ask me, hey, how did that situation go? And I'm like, oh, well, this is going on right now. And she'd be like, oh my God. Like it was just like one thing after another. And then she was like, well, at least your life is not boring. And I'm like, thanks, appreciate it. No, I didn't think I was gonna get along with my therapist when I first went in there, and I gave her a shot, and like she was great. Like I had a lot of breakthroughs. Like I definitely opened up a lot. I definitely fucking cried on a few separate times, and I'm just like, oh my God, like. And I needed it. I absolutely needed it, and I felt really good by the time my sessions were over with her and everything like that. But yeah, like
Yeah.
like Sarah's saying, if therapy wasn't working for you the first time, it might just be your therapist. Like keep searching. There's a great one out
Yeah.
there for everybody. So,
Mm-hmm.
but let's switch subjects a little bit here. Let's talk about your career. You're still teaching Spanish, right?
Yes.
How's that going?
It's going well. I teach pre-K through 8th grade. I teach at my kids' school, so my own children are my students too. And like I said before, going back to school in August has helped us to kind of maintain some normalcy.
Right.
It's still been different, but the good thing is that if I have to be out of school for any reason, I can still teach remotely because my students are already familiar with the platform, and that makes it so that we're not really missing anything. And so that's been really good. My kids being in my classroom has been a challenge because it's establishing boundaries between being mommy and being teacher. And I think that that's totally typical of having teacher kids in the same building. Overall, though, I feel like it's going pretty well, and I love my students, and I feel like when I'm teaching, that's the only time that I have this, I don't know, sense of not just teaching. When I'm teaching and parenting, that's when I feel my sense of purpose the strongest. And I actually we had a public speaker a couple years ago at a different school I worked at, came in and he was a BMXer in the Olympics, and talked about his struggle with addiction, and talked about how putting on his helmet was like when he felt like he didn't need to flee to drugs. And I felt like teaching was putting on my helmet. That's when I felt safe. I felt confident in what I was doing. Similar in parenting, but not quite as much, because in parenting, I'm constantly questioning what I'm doing and if it's going to screw my kids up somehow. But in teaching, it's become such a second nature because I am good at it. I have really strong connections with my students, and I'm confident in my content. So I know that what I'm teaching them is not going to change most of the time. So that helps me because I can keep doing it and feeling confident in it despite the chaos that surrounds me in other areas of my life.
Do your kids call you Mrs. Hall during school time, or do they just say teacher?
My children, my own kids?
Yeah.
No, they call me mommy. Mm-hmm. Yep. And all of their classmates know, and when I come into their classroom, they're like, Xander, your mommy's here, or but it's also, I'm not the only teacher with kids in the building.
Gotcha.
So it's become pretty natural. We have the PE teacher also has kids in the building. There's other classes where they're like, oh, that's your mommy. And so it's kind of something that's not brand new to other children. So they don't really mind it when they call me mommy.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, we never had that growing up or anything like that. But I remember my nephew and my niece, before they graduated the elementary school they attended, my mom was the school nurse for a number of years there until she finally retired. But now, that was cool, to kind of be like, like have them there. And then, if anything, she was there to take care of them and stuff. So very cool. Very cool. Let's talk about your podcast for a little bit, because you got into podcasting kind of from, I guess, like seeing us do it, I guess, or something, or maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, like you wanted to do a podcast yourself, and your podcast is called Raising Legacies, where you talk a lot about parenting and bringing up like your children and stuff, and like what you're going to leave behind when you're not here, and how your children are going to be once you're gone, kind of thing. Am I right here, like assuming that, or like the gist of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You are wrong about how I got started, though.
Okay. All right.
So I can start there, and then, but it definitely helped me to gain momentum when I saw you doing it, because I was like, okay, if other people can do it, then I can too.
Oh, okay.
So actually,
so I was wrong then. Yeah.
It was, but it's okay. That's okay. You did have a part. But there was a time that I was considering starting a blog and just kind of sharing my voice and looking for something that I could use to connect with other people. And I did not think that I could dedicate the time to writing and editing, and it was just not something that I was super gung-ho about.
So let me do a podcast. There's going to be no editing or anything like that. No.
But listen, it's so different. Like I can edit, you can edit your voice much differently than like reading something. And then I would also have to make sure that I was finding content, and writing about an interview is not the same as having one with voice. And so I thought about maybe a YouTube channel or maybe a podcast, and YouTube channel was like, my house is not always YouTube ready. This just happens to be a clean wall behind me, but it could have drawings on it next week. Who knows? And like this, I don't know, it just did not seem like YouTube was for me. And then I would have to like
You gotta get one of these, and for my audio listeners,
for the chair.
Yeah, for the chair, it's a little green screen that attaches to the back of your chair.
We just bought a green screen for my son's birthday and a ring light because this brings me back to how I got started. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were doing all these like science experiments and stuff I was talking about before. And my oldest son, Dante, said, I really want to start a YouTube channel. What do I need to do?
Right.
So I said, okay, well, what we need to do is take videos and then we need to edit them. Then we need to put them online. And he's like, that's it? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Let's do it. Let's videotape these science experiments. And I was like, oh, okay. So we did it. And then I was like, well, hang on a second. Like if I'm encouraging him to start something that he's passionate about, then it's time for me to like get moving on my podcast, because it's not okay for me to be telling him he can do something when I'm not believing it myself that I can do it. So he was actually my inspiration to get started. And then I used what you all were doing with your podcast as resources to learn about the logistics, because I didn't know anything about podcasting. And so then I did some research and listened to a few podcasts about making podcasts and decided, fine, this is something that I can do. So I batch recorded 4 or 5 episodes plus my preview and said, this is what I'm going to do. And then I just did it. And I was like, now that this is done, I have to keep doing it. And because it felt so good. And I was like, I don't know who the people are that are listening to my podcast, but I can see that I've had over 1,000 listens. And that makes me feel so confident that somebody is hearing the message that I set out to deliver, and somebody feels less alone in their parenting journey, which is what I set out to do. So it's a passion project for me. And it's something that was originally inspired by my then 6-year-old. So it was amazing. And knowing that like there are other things that he and I have done together where it's like, I'm doing it because I know that it's setting an example for him. And we sat down to write stories recently, and I wrote a children's book, and he started writing a chapter book. He's 3 chapters in, right? And like, he's so excited and intrinsically motivated, which is huge in a child. And so now my book is as an illustrator, and it's going to be published, I'm hoping, before the end of the school year. And so there are these things that I'm doing. We self-publish journals together, Dante and I designed them on Canva, and then I uploaded them onto Kindle Direct Publishing, and then ordered some copies so that I had like the author copies so I could have them physically to show people. And when he saw it come in the mail, he was like, wait a second, like this is the thing that you designed that was on Canva and online, and now it's in person, and oh my God, could I do that? And I was like, 100%, here's the app. And he did it. And so now we purchased one of his journals that he designed as one of his birthday presents, so he could see it like in person. And I think he's got 7 of them up there right now. He started doing them by letter of the alphabet. So I think he's got A, B, C, D, E, F, 6 of them, A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, A through F right now. So if your name starts with A through F, you can buy one of his journals. But yeah, so that was a cool thing for us to do. And it's the thing we have together, and he's excited about it. And I'm excited doing it with him because it's high quality experience of memories that we're generating that he gets to hold on to forever, and know that, you know, when he wants to do something in his life, all he has to do is a little bit of research and then start. And even if he finds that it's stuff that he doesn't love or he's not passionate about, then he can disconnect and try something different. But it's encouraging him to learn more and to take those risks of trying stuff even when it feels scary. He recently got into Korean, and because of K-pop, and loved it so much that he was like, I want to learn Korean. So I started finding courses for him to take in Korean because it's something he wants to learn about. He hates my class. He hates Spanish. And it breaks my heart, but it's also like, okay, I mean, I'm Indonesian and did not learn the language until like recently I started to learn, and I took advantage of that myself. But also like I went a completely different direction. I started learning from a whole new continent. So I'm learning, like I am a Spanish learner myself. So I can't be mad that he didn't want to learn the language that I'm teaching her, or that my father could teach to him. Instead, he decided something completely different, and he's really going for it.
Very cool.
Yeah. And those are some of the things that we kind of share experiences on the Raising Legacies podcast, kind of like
Yeah,
But
Dante reminds me a lot of you. Like he definitely like you know what I mean? Like just every time I'm over, like I could see that he's more of a chip off of you than, you know, he's got Jay qualities too, but I see I see Jay more in Xander sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
absolutely.
you
Yep.
know.
Yeah. So Dante got Jay's looks and my
Yep.
personality, and
Yep.
Xander got my looks and Jay's personality.
Right,
So
exactly. Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
little bit of each one of us. Yep, for sure.
But yeah, the podcast. I'm sorry, you were talking about the podcast.
No, that's okay. I was just going to bring it back to, you were talking about what my podcast was and what I do. And that's a big piece of it, is kind of sharing my experiences with my own parenting and how it can be a hot mess sometimes, but also an amazing gift. And so it's finding ways to ensure that when I'm gone, my kid can thrive. And I actually had a student whose parent passed when she was in middle school. And I remember hearing from somebody else that she had posted something on social media about how her mom taught her everything except how to live without her. And it was definitely more of an emotional connection that she was speaking to. But I thought, and I think frequently, like, what are my kids going to lack when I'm gone? Of course, they're going to miss my hugs and my quality time, but what are the things that I do for them that I can instead teach them to do themselves? And
Right.
what can I do to ensure that when they are my age, they're not experiencing the same struggles that I am? Like, of course, I want them to struggle because I want them to build resilience.
Right.
And so there are a lot of times I'm teaching them problem solving and teaching them conflict resolution. And at the same time, I want them to recognize, like, when it's okay to ask for help if they can't resolve something on their own.
Exactly. Well, very cool. Like I definitely enjoy it. You know, it's a great show, and I'm really happy for you. Like, you know,
Thank
doing
you.
something that you're proud of and everything like that. You know, I get the same feeling whenever I put out. I may bitch and complain about how much work I put into my podcast, but it's a podcast of love that I do every week for everybody. So it's just the nightmare fuel that I have to, you know, go through and put out. And you know, if I can go back in time and say, don't make it a video podcast, I would, because that's just double the work that I do to myself every week. But you know, it is what it is. So
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, definitely. If my listeners out there, if you are parents, definitely check out Raising Legacies podcast with Sarah here. It's really a great show, and you should subscribe. So let's talk
Thank you.
about anytime. Let's talk about future plans. Like, you know, obviously we're still in this pandemic and everything. We're coming towards the end of it. Hopefully, you know, like, you know, Biden just gave word that all adults are finally going to be eligible for the vaccine as of May 1st. Thank God. You know, but you're a teacher. I'm assuming you're getting yours sooner than me.
I just had my first dose.
Okay. How you feeling?
Uh, Fine now. The first day I was really sore and really tired.
Okay.
And I heard that dose 2 is even heavier.
Yeah, I heard
So
dose 2 is a little bit heavier. Yeah.
we'll see.
Did you
I'm
get the?
planning to do it. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you get
Moderna.
the? You got Moderna? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
heard.
Moderna. And so, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I heard Johnson and Johnson's is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was fine though, and I did it on a Saturday, so now I know that when I do it the next time, it's also a Saturday, and I will have a couple of days to heal and feel better before I have to go back to work. So that was definitely helpful.
Oh, there you go. But like after all that, like, you know, what are your plans down the road? Like, do you have anything big coming up? Like any other projects that you're working on that, you know, you'd like to talk about, or any other books?
Yeah. So right now it's just, well, okay. So I have the children's book that's coming out no later than this summer. And then I also have a book in Spanish that I've been writing for a few months now. And so I actually have a few that I've purchased for my classroom that my students read 5 minutes every day. And they're reading in the language and they're reading actual books. It's not like one sentence, you know, kid books. They're reading like novels that have been written at a novice proficiency level so that they can understand it. So when I saw these come in, and like I actually interacted with one of the authors through an email about a question that I had, and I was like, these are real teachers, these are real people. Like, I could be writing a book, and writing a book has been a thing I thought about for a really long time. And it's another thing that kind of I let fear get in the way. And so I'm not doing that anymore because, my new motto to overcome that is do it scared. Yeah, you're going to be scared and that's okay. Do it scared. And so I'm doing it. The same thing I kind of tell my kids when they have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and it's dark, like, I'm scared. Yeah, you are. Go anyway. And they do.
Or you're going to regret it in the morning.
Yeah, right. So just kind of teaching myself along the way that, I'm scared. Why am I scared? Well, I'm scared because people won't read my book. Well, but I read other people's books, and there are so many books in the world that people aren't just buying 5 books and reading only those books, right? Like they look for new things to read all the time. My book is going to speak to someone. So I'm writing a book in Spanish that is it's called Two Christmases. And it's about a teenager rather, who is going through a divorce. His parents are getting divorced, and he's about to have his first Christmas with separate parents. And he's also battling issues of sexuality and recognizing that he is homosexual. And so now he has to navigate those changes. And in addition to like puberty, because he's a teenager, right? So it's kind of all these complications, but I shared with my students that this was a thing that I was doing. So they hold me accountable and they're like, how many chapters have you done? And are you still working on it? And so that's another project that I've been working on. And I'm also a consultant with Usborne Books and More, which is it's a direct sales company, but it is books, puzzles, and activities that are learning tools. And that helps me to get books into the hands of children all around me. So I've been running a fundraiser to fill some of the free little libraries. They're like the little houses at parks that people put books in and you can take books out of them. So I've been working on that and then just working with the business itself. And that's been really exciting and fun for me. And I've built some really great friendships through that. And I get to get books to lots of families and do it mostly for free or at a really cheap rate for them. So I love doing that. And this summer I have a convention for this company where it was virtual last year. It's going to be virtual again this year, but my teammates and I are going to meet up in person for the first time. And we're going to rent an Airbnb and hang out and spend time together like in person, which is going to be huge. So I'm super excited for that. And then the last thing that I have not done a ton of preparation for, but my son keeps asking me to go to Asia. He wants to go to Korea. He's learning Korean. And so there's a plan to take a trip at some point in our future. I want to go back to Indonesia. I want to introduce my kids to that. So at some point in my life, I absolutely want to teach abroad with my children with me, because I think it's necessary for them to see the world. And I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that they get to do that, because traveling is a huge piece of my life. I love to travel. I love to experience new cultures. And so I figure maybe we'll do a visit with my family and then maybe do a semester abroad somewhere together. And try to make that a regular part of their life, like the traveling component. So that's a much longer term goal that I have, but certainly something that I am not going to neglect.
It's a lot more than what I got going on. So hell yeah, like keep it up. I'm actually just, I mean, I've been talking to a friend of mine from the music scene who was actually a guest last season. We're going to make some short films and I'm, looking into getting better equipment, because once things start opening back up, I was already recording live sets for bands and stuff, but I kind of want to take it a step further. I want to do music videos, like legit looking music videos. I want to do short films, maybe make my own films and stuff like that. And my buddy, he's actually a writer, and he's got a couple screenplays already and stuff like that. So we're just throwing ideas together and, seeing what we can do, between my editing and shooting skills and then his writing skills. I think we can, do something cool. So
yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, because I'm not making music right now. I'm still waiting on the guys that I was working with, and they haven't sent me anything. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But all right, let's wind it down a little bit. Where can everyone find your podcast?
So my podcast is available on every listening platform where podcasts are available, and you just search Raising Legacies. I specifically operate off of Anchor, but I have listeners that listen on Spotify and on Google Podcasts, and Castbox are the ones that people most frequently listen on, but it's available on, I think, 10 different platforms right now.
Very
And
cool.
you can also find me on Instagram at Raising Legacies Podcast and on Facebook at Raising Legacies Podcast. And I always link the episodes that I do there.
I gotta send you that file still. I just remember that you were asking me for stickers not that long ago. My bad.
Oh, that's okay, because I started creating my journals and forgot about it. So
Okay.
I need to do it. I definitely want to have merch for my podcast to
Right.
send as swag for my guests who come on. And I've been communicating a lot with, I'm into several different podcasters groups on Facebook. And so we connect and find guests that way. So I've had some really amazing women come on my podcast recently, and I'm like, I really need to get them some thank yous because I loved having them, but I want to send more than a card. Like a heartfelt handwritten card can be great, but I want to toss a sticker in there or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll talk off air about that. But I just remembered I was like, she asked me for stickers and I totally spaced and forgot about it.
No problem.
All right. So I'm just going to plug my own stuff and then we'll talk off air. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could do me a favor, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon to get notified every time we drop a new video. If you're listening on audio, hello, how are you? Make sure to subscribe to us. We're available on all major podcast networks, Spotify, Apple, Google, Dozer, I think that's what it's called, but a bunch of other podcast apps. Please rate and review, especially on Apple and Google. Tell a friend, even if you have to glove up, wear a mask, and snag their phone out of their hands to hit that subscribe button and then sanitize it before giving it back to them. I'd appreciate it. We're available. You can check us out on Facebook to stay up to date with the show. Facebook.com/Roads We've Traveled Podcast. Twitter and Instagram at RWT Pod. We have a Patreon. If you like the show and you want to become a Patreon member, go to patreon.com/Roads We've Traveled to get exclusive content like episodes early, AMAs, all that great stuff. We got merch on TeePublic. Link down below. And you can follow me at Twitch, twitch.tv/JRBuckleGaming. I've been doing a lot of random gaming with a lot of friends of mine. What did we do last night? We played some sort of Among Us kind of ripoff game called, oh my God, what was it called? I forget. It was like a pirate game or something like that. It was so dumb. And then we played Half Dead 2. But it's fun over there. Definitely come say hi on Twitch and hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. And if you want to hit me up for commission work, whether artwork, video work, whatever, check out my portfolio at www.alanmpelletierjr.com. Sarah, this was great. Thank you for coming on. I'm looking forward to
having me.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in person. Give everyone my best. Give your kids an extra big hug for me, okay?
I will. Thank you.
No problem.